I will continue my introduction to sociology of knowledge. It will be in continuation of my yesterday's lecture. Yesterday we saw how sociology of institutional knowledge in universities function with the example of Emile Durkheim's book Les Suicides, where deliberately his English translation was postponed until the high priest of the first world, namely Talcott Parsons, published his second major book in 1951, The Social System. Then we have been also dealing how Max Weber's influence was created with some sort of dubious translations by American sociologists, again led by the high priest called, Talcott Parsons. I told you after the Second World War, three worlds were socially constructed. The first world, under the leadership of United Kingdom, under Winston Churchill and President Roosevelt of United States of America, and the high priest of the first world became Talcott Parsons, followed by Robert Nisbet and Louis Koger. Because of political economic reasons, which I will go in detail, then the second world, or the concept of second world, was created out of the Soviet bloc in Eastern Europe, that is USSR or Soviet Union, followed by People's Republic of China, and the high priest of sociology in English-speaking countries for the Second World were also three towering figures. I am not using the term high priest because Marxists claim, at least formally, that is officially, that most of them are either atheist or agnostic. Now, in case the first world is represented by Talcott Parsons, Robert Nisbet and Louis Koger, the second world in academia is represented by Bukharin, T.B. Baltimore or Tom Baltimore, and Ernst Mendel. Now, let us see how Karl Marx was appropriated or distorted or there was interpolation in the sociological theory of Karl Marx. And as you know by now, I rely on primary sources. Therefore, for Marxist appropriation of Karl Marx, the main references are Tom Baltimore's edited A Dictionary of Marxist Thought, and the second text is the Marxist Philosophy and the Sciences by J.B.S. Haldane. When we deal with the third world, now this construction also came from the first world, like the concept of second world. Now, in case you ask the ghost of Bukharin or the ghost of Tom Baltimore or the ghost of Ernst Mendel, three of them will say that yes, we represented Marxist sociology at the institutional level of universities, but they will refuse to say or they will refuse to accept that they are the major institutional social scientists of the second world. Rather, they will claim the Marxist bloc is the first world and the capitalist world has to decay very soon, although it survived longer than the prediction of Karl Marx and his successors. But even now, when Soviet Union is no more, and since 1989 event of the fall of the Berlin Wall, and in 1991 disintegration of the Soviet Union, much of the second world has been incorporated in the first world. Of course, not as equal partner, but as some sort of complementary partners. Now let us come to the concept of third world. Now, the concept of third world was also created by the masters of the first world, namely Winston Churchill, Roosevelt, and his successor Truman, and then President Eisenhower. The interesting thing about the first world is that Although after or during the Second World War, three important transitions or replacements took place in the First World. But academically, Winston Churchill's advocate in social science, economist Keynes, was no more alive after the Second World War, when the concept of three worlds was being created. Therefore, Keynes was appropriated by the high priest, and the high priest is high priest because of his very close relationship with the three American presidents, Roosevelt, Truman, and Eisenhower, as it is pronounced in two ways. There were three presidents, but there was one academic high priest, namely Talcott Parsons, because he was close to all the three presidents. He represented the American establishment academically, not only in United States of America or the NATO countries, but he also became one of the most important reference point for so-called third world sociologists in particular and social scientists in general. Now, who constituted the third world? All those countries which became independent after the Second World War in different parts of the world. Now, as some postmodernist or post-colonial social scientists and literary critics try to say that the third world consisted of ex-colonies or earlier colonies of the first world. Now, there is technical and logical problems in this conceptualization, because the leader of the first world, United States of America, was itself a colony of first Spain and then England. But the dividing line of the first world is not colonied before the Second World War, rather the colonies which became independent after 1945, when the Second World War was over. Now, which countries are most important when they are conceptualizing the third world in 1945? As the date indicates to you, India is yet to become independent. India was not an independent country in 1945. Therefore, India became independent in 1947 with creation of another country out of the colonial India, namely Pakistan. Then the People's Republic of China was also not an independent country in 1945, although they tried to install a man who was suitable to them, namely Sun Yat-sen, who later on migrated from the mainland to Taiwan. But China remained a third world country until 1989. Now China and India both, after 1991, are included with South Africa and Brazil as part of the first world. India is, sociologically speaking, not a leading country of the third world like People's Republic of China, but political events take place a little early and sociological conceptualizations are revised a little late, because unlike philosophers or literary critics, we do not have the luxury of anticipating or predicting things which may happen. Therefore, we socialize, or we construct, or we discover, or we invent a new term or a new concept only after it exists as a prior existing social fact. Therefore, although the leading countries of third world in 1950s have been transferred in political economic terminology to the first world, but the sociology of third world exists even today. And who are the three major thinkers, sociologists, social scientists, who can be equated with the counterparts from first world or second world? Namely, who can be equated with Talcott Parsons of first world and Bukharin of second world? The man is definitely Andre Gunder Frank. Andre Gunder Frank represents the functional equivalent theorist of third world, almost at par with Talcott Parsons and Bukharin. Now, who is the second most important theorist of the third world? There is no controversy. He is definitely Claude Lévi-Strauss of France. Now, who is the third sociologist of the third world? Now, here there is a little debate which was primarily created by sociologist Veena Das, earlier of Delhi School of Economics, but now a global veteran in sociology. In the book called Critical Events, she contrasted two possible names. One was Louis Dumont of France, who not only wrote about India, he had almost 4 to 5 books on India, the leading country of the third world then, but he had also got books on United States of America and the first world. Now, Veena Das contrasts the candidature of Louis Dumont with the candidature of a much less known person in India, A.K. Saran, one of the leading sociologists of Lucknow School of Sociology, with Radha Kamal Mukherjee, D.P. Mukherjee, D.N. Majumdar, Baljeet Singh. He was one of the original voices of Lucknow School of Sociology, who is taken very seriously outside India, but in India he is neither read nor he is usually referred. But in case you take A.K. Saran over Louis Dumont as the representative of third world sociology, then you realize the importance of another person whose name is A.K. Kumar Swamy. Kumar Swamy, C-O-O-M-A-R-A. Kumara Swamy, S-W-A-M-Y. Now, in case I just tell A.K. Kumar Swamy, then it will be rather difficult for most of you to understand his ethnic background. He is not A for Anand and K for Kumar, like our center had two Kumars, one who recently retired, namely Anand Kumar, and now the second person is Vivek Kumar. He is not Kumar in that sense. His K represent Kentis. His name is Ananda Kentis Kumaraswamy. Therefore, he is partly Sri Lankan Tamil from the father side, but from the mother's side he is a British person, and the mother was a Catholic from United Kingdom. Kumar Swamy was educated and trained in England, and he was a British national before the First World War. During the First World War, he was in India, and he is regarded as the guru of not only Rabindranath Tagore, but his whole family of his generation, including his artist, philosopher brother Abanindranath Tagore, and sociologist Ram Krishna Mukherjee, in his book Sociology of Indian Sociology, had included A.K. Kumaraswamy as one of the 9 founding fathers of sociology. Of course, the name of A.K. Saran is not there. When Veena Das published her book Critical Events, another book was published by T.N. Madan from the same publication house, Oxford University Press. The name of the book is Pathways. And on page 139 of the first edition of Pathways, T.N. Madan said that the future of sociology and social anthropology in the world, when he is writing in 1990s after the fall of the Berlin Wall and the disintegration of Soviet Union, after the publication of Francis Fukuyama's End of the History. He is claiming that in case we are living in the global village, we need a different type of theoretical formulation, and it can only come from a synthesis of Claude Lévi-Strauss and Anand Kentish Kumaraswamy. Now, around the same time, another sociologist of our center, as you know, T.N. Madan was trained in 2 places, Lucknow under D.N. Majumdar, who was a student of Bronisław Malinowski, who claimed Emil Durkheim as his mentor.